Steve here over at Lawrence Technology Services, and today we're working on a new build for a customer. We're not too sure what he wants to do with it because he was kind of vague, just I want something really fast. I want to be able to open that spreadsheet instantly. So I said, well, basically what you do in that case is a gaming machine just shy of a high-end card. So what we went with is we quoted it all out, and now we're going to talk about the parts a bit and what we like to use and why, and what we're going to use to build this. So starting with the processor, we have the AMD Ryzen R7 1700. This is a 20 megs of cache processor, so 16 megs of L3, half a meg of cache per core, running at 3 gigahertz with a turbo speed of 3.7. Now the difference between like your 1700 and then you have an 1700X and 1800X, the X's are supposed to have an auto overclock feature based on the temperature, and they're sold without heat sinks and fans. And we actually have a heat sink from another build we did that we took the fan off because Kyle wanted it, and they're really nice Wraith cooler heat sinks with these. So out of the box you're getting a pretty good cooling, not top of the line, but you don't have to worry about it if you're just using it for day-to-day stuff. And it actually looks like they press a coolant right into the center, and then your fan actually mounts over this. But when we took the fan off, we thought that was really impressive that it has a copper core that goes all the way through. And this processor runs at 65 watts, so it's a processor that scores in the upper 13,000s on CPU benchmark in a 65 watt package, so it's not going to generate a lot of heat and it's not going to kill you on an electric bill. Moving on to the next part, we have the Msi Tomahawk B 350. The reason we went with this board is it's highly recommended. We picked a lot of this stuff up at Micro Center. All the guys there, if you ask them, what's a really reliable AM4 board, they just default to this one. It's not the highest end chipset, so there are some drawbacks, but if you don't need those features, this is a really inexpensive board to pick up, especially considering Micro Center gives you $50 off when you buy the processor with a board. So we picked up this board for about $60. It has an M2 slot, 4 SATA ports, and that's one of the drawbacks versus the higher end chipset. Now the higher end chipsets for the AM4s, you do get more SATA ports, more PCI lanes, and more support for little stuff like that. This does have an LED controller and all the other stuff though that you do find on some of the higher end ones that you're paying hundreds of dollars for. So if you're just looking for something that'll work, you only have a couple hard drives, an M2 drive, and a single video card without SLI or Crossfire, this board's the way to go. We have 32 gigs of DDR4 2400 in a dual 16 package. Normally I like to go like quad 8s because it does tend to be slightly lower latency, but I wanted to also have the option to just add more memory down the road, so this was the way to go. I'm a fan of Crucial. I had to deal one time with their RMA process, and they were painless to deal with. They sent us a new stick. When we sent dual channel in, we only had to send the one. They gave us the option. They actually have people who answer phones and will answer your questions. We have a basic Western Digital 1 terabyte blue. Now if you're gonna go for performance and you want a larger drive, after you get past the 1 terabytes in Western Digitals, you wanna go with the Western Digital Blacks because they merge the green line and blue line into the same. When you hit your 2 terabytes and greater, they actually drop to a 5400 RPM drive. So you do lose some of the performance over what you have with the 1 terabytes being 7200 RPM. And Western Digital has an amazing return policy. You literally just submit the serial number, put it in a box, send it back, and they just ship you a new one. We've never had to, as many drives as we've sent back, we've never had to argue with them on. For graphics, the client wasn't sure if he wants 2 monitors, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to do 4K or 2 1080s. By going with a 1050 Ti, since he's not doing gaming, he doesn't need the higher end processing power of the nicer cards, but you can run a 4K on a 1050. The 1050 Ti, instead of 2 gigs, has 4 gigs of RAM, so if in the future he decides, I want 2 4K TVs on this, feel free to do it. We have an Intel M2 Pcie SSD. The top two manufacturers for these right now are Intel and Samsung. They are both really good. I think the Samsung's a little bit better, but you pay quite a bit more for the Samsung. This has a write speed in the 500 megabytes a second range, but a read speed in the 1700s. And since primarily you use these as a boot drive, read speeds are far more important. CoolMaster Master Liquid 240. I picked this out because even the guys at Micro Center were like, oh, that's an amazing price for that. Versus the 120 by 120 variants, you could pick this one up from there for only about $20 more. This is a 120 by 240, so it uses two 120 millimeter fans, completely closed system. You just hook it up and go, and these have gotten way better and way easier to hook up over the years. So you don't necessarily need, you know, a degree in theoretical engineering to put these on anymore. We have an EVGA 750 B2. I'm a fan of the EVGA power supplies. They're really heavy, they're very well built. I like the semi-modular versus the full modular. It's a little bit cheaper to get a semi-modular, and the cables that are constantly connected, you're more than likely gonna use. I actually feel it's a bit harder to work with fully modular ones because by the time you get all the clips in for it, it pushes the wire out about that much more, and it's harder to kind of move around and whatnot, especially depending on where they decided to put the clips. The case is the Antec P100. It has a full door system on the front, room for two 5 1/4 external CD-ROM bays, a full filter for the fans that's easy to remove and clean, room for two fans on the front. It comes with a fan on the front, and there's actually another fan on the back. Both of them have speed controllers built in. The top has a sealed set of brackets, like a bolt-on piece of metal. What this does is kind of seal it so dirt doesn't get down in there if you're not going to use the top vents. I really like that feature because that's always a concern of mine with these top vent cases. If you're not using it, it's just an area that things can spill down in or something can always happen. This kind of helps seal that off a bit. Here's the back. We have another fan. You have your grommet for if you want to run liquid cool out of the system or any excess wires. Full support for full ATX boards. Another filter that comes out easily to clean for the power supply if you mount it downwards facing. And inside the case, you can see the fan speed controller for the rear fan. The front one's up under there. It has room for 7 full-size hard drives, and these also have the mounts for solid-state drives. Now, one of the things I'm not a big fan of is these aren't completely, they're toolless to remove, but to attach the drive you actually need a screwdriver. It's nice that it comes with the rubber grommets to stop against vibration on your full-size mechanical drives, but that also means you can't just pop it in and out like some of the other cases that have the little pins on the side. But they slide right in, nice in and out, nice and easy. They give you all the screws, including the extra ones with the washer for those rubber grommets. The case has full front USB 3.0, it has 2 of them, and 2 USB 2.0 and front audio. So it's got a header for the front USB 3.0, the front 2.0, and the front audio, and then all the little different color wires for your front panel hookups. It has rubber grommets for cable management to hide them better, and one of the really amazing things is this is the side of the case, as I drop a screw there. The side actually has a foam on it, an acoustic foam to deaden more sound. Other side in the back, you can't really see it too well, but the other side has the exact same thing on the cable management side, and it actually has it on the bottom of those cover plates for the top bays. And on the inside of the, oh, I gotta turn around this way for you. It's weird that the door opens that way to me. But on the inside of the door even, it has a full foam. So once the thing's fully closed up, the downside is it does insulate it a little bit, but it also deadens a lot of the noise. So now we're gonna get to the build process today. We're gonna get this put together. We'll see how it performs, get Windows loaded on it, run a couple benchmarks, and see how much power it draws. We actually got a kilowatt meter so we can measure these things because I've never really tried before and I'm curious.
So the build is complete and it went great. So this Ryzen system, turns out, is low wattage, even running the 3D Mark and different tests that we put on there. The wattage usage at idle's about in the 40s, and we've seen the highest, we were able to get it at one time by testing a lot of different things at once, up to like 140, but mostly even running this, it's sitting around on the kilowatt in the 120 range most of the time when it's generally stressed, like, you know, in gameplay. Now we had to throw some games on there. It's not for what the customer's going to do. Well, not really games, we just use some of the 3D testing software on there when we're doing for the build, because to our knowledge with this client, because he generally just has lots of spreadsheets put across a couple monitors, and we're pretty sure he's going to go with some 4K monitors, which is the reason we went with the EVGA card. So we know it has no problem driving that, and generally to make Windows 10 a little bit better, good graphics card does help with some of the graphics. And you know, you want things to really be smooth, especially with some of the newer features that are coming out. So you want to future-proof these a little bit, which is why we went with the EVGA Ti card. I mean, for the price point, it's really good. I mean, it's not your top performer in gaming, but this is going to look at really cool spreadsheets and a lot of other stuff that this guy happens to do. So the case build, and I pulled the microphone way in to show you I'm sitting right next to it. The microphone is about right there. I mean, literally off the edge of camera. You're not picking up ambient noise from this thing. It's really quiet. So having this foam backing on the case like we showed you, which is currently off and still not that much noise. There's just that little bit of noise you can hear, but once you put this on, it just disappears. I'm not even sure if the microphone could pick up how little noise is coming out there, but it's really solid as far as the quietness. Now the filters on the front, I'm really impressed with the way it works, the way it pulls the airflow through, and then as you see here, we mounted the radiator up and venting out from the top. This case had that option so you could take out the top plates and use them for venting or close them, which is really nice. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with this Antec P100 case, and it's been great. As you can see with the cable management, it's super clean. So we have a very clean cable management system in here. The cables were able to route perfectly fine through all this stuff, and this is why we chose the EVGA semi-modular power supply. This allowed us to keep the clean cabling and have the wires nice and only the ones we need. Then we put the rest of them in a little package, just going to go with the computer when we deliver it. Now back to that CoolMaster liquid cooler. I do like the sealed systems. It works really well as far as quiet. I have you know, I've used them before in other builds, and the CoolMaster one turned out to be a little bit trickier to install than I expected. We might just do a video on how we put that together, because the instructions were not quite as clear, and it did require reading the instructions. Apparently it has, you have to use with the Ryzen build here in the AM4 socket styles, the on board, not the clips that came with it. So it was a little bit, we thought at first you had to use them, then you don't. You integrate it with what's existing on the board. Nonetheless, when it's all done, other than the weird tricky there, the next problem kind of was how you mounted the screws, because you have a assembly of the fan that goes with it with these longer screws, and then you have to drop in over the top of it another screw into it. It's kind of a unique design I haven't seen before, or maybe I just haven't seen enough of them. But some of the other ones we haven't seen this design. The screws generally go all the way through the radiator, and they hold the fan and a radiator as one piece, or you put the fan on the other side of the radiator. So it's a little bit different of a design, and it kind of leaves a gap up here at the top. Not a big deal. It's depends on and comes down to aesthetics. I don't think the aesthetics are really a problem with it, but it is a slightly different to look at, I guess, compared to the one that's in my computer for my build, which I can leave a link below for the build that I did for my gaming system at home. That I don't play much. Mostly my kids play, but that's kind of why I built it. Now the hard drives with the dampening and all that, I like the mounts. Those were easy enough to use. I do like the toolless ones a little bit better, obviously because no screws to put in, but either way, these worked out really well. The Intel SuperNOVA performed as expected. They're really nice. I have one in my computer. I have one here. They are just great performers. I really like this. You know, I still can't wait for some of the newer and next generation stuff that's going to be even faster. But it's definitely an improvement. The 1 terabyte drive in here. That's, you know, the one spinning hard drive that we had. Once again, this guy's not much of a data hoarder. But overall, I'm really happy with how everything went. Everything came out really clean. The case is really quiet. That was a big goal. You know, this is a really nice office that it's going into, and that's something even for myself, because I'm recording videos in my office. I don't want a bunch of ambient noise around me. You know, I have all the sound deadening here in the studio area, and I've got the sound deadening in my office, but you don't want to introduce more sound there. So the Antec case was super easy to work with. Definitely worked for the sound deadening. Performance of the computer, great. No real tricky issues that we had. So thanks for watching. If you like the content, like and subscribe. We plan on doing some more builds, and we have a few more planned coming up. It's one of those things that it takes a little bit while to build and document them. I'm still trying to figure out a good style to do it in, but definitely if you like this, let me know. If I missed something or I should get more details, let me know. We haven't really decided, you know, we should buy the 3D Mark software. What if we're going to start benchmarking these? We just have like the demo that we're running in the back. To get you some numbers on here. I'll show you the stats for some of the 3D stuff here, but if you have other questions, let us know. It's actually going to be shipped, so I may not be able to, I can answer questions, but I may not be able to do any more tests because the client's coming to get it here in a couple hours when we open. So I usually film these videos from open. Once again, thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Take care.